20% of the league are free agents. Like, everyone timed their contracts. Everybody signed one-year deals, and everyone timed their contracts to coincide with this new CBA. So literally, there's not even really any teams. There's only like 20% of the...
Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to pause for a moment and really take in the magnitude of what was just confirmed on national television. We've been covering this WNBA collective bargaining situation for weeks. We've talked about the tension, the disagreements, and the internal conflict. But ESPN's Ramona Shelburne just went on the Rich Eisen show and delivered information that reveals just how chaotic things have become behind the scenes. At this point, it's no longer being framed as a typical labor dispute. The situation has escalated into something far more serious. Roughly 80% of WNBA players are currently without contracts. That number is so startling it almost sounds unreal, but that's the reality being discussed. According to Shelburne, many players aligned their contract timelines, allowing deals to expire at the same time as part of a broader strategy to strengthen their negotiating position. The result is a league landscape where a majority of players are technically unsigned, creating enormous uncertainty about how operations will proceed. It's a calculated move, but one that has pushed the system into an extremely fragile state. If you thought earlier public gestures from a players' association were awkward, this development adds an entirely new layer of complexity. Shelburne explained that union leadership encouraged players last season to sign shorter-term deals and essentially bet on themselves, anticipating that rising revenues and attention around the league would translate into a stronger bargaining position when negotiations arrived. But high-stakes strategies come with risk. At some point, one side has to yield. Right now, neither side appears willing to do that. Meanwhile, the league is preparing to introduce 2 expansion franchises in Toronto and Portland. Expansion should be a milestone moment signaling growth and momentum. Yet both teams are still waiting to build their rosters because key mechanisms, like an expansion draft and finalized salary structures, depend on a collective bargaining agreement that hasn't been reached. You can't conduct a draft without knowing the financial framework. You can't sign players without clarity on the cap. Much of the league's normal infrastructure is effectively paused while negotiations continue. And then there's the scheduling situation. The WNBA recently released a regular season schedule, which on the surface looked like a reassuring sign that the season is moving forward. But as Shelburne pointed out, releasing a schedule doesn't guarantee resolution. It can also be interpreted as an attempt to maintain momentum and signal stability during a period that is anything but stable. In other words, the calendar may be set, but the business side of the sport is still very much in flux.
We're getting close here, Rich. I mean, I thought it was interesting the league put out a schedule because one of the pressure points I had been hearing was literally arena dates. You know how this goes. Like, if you don't have your dates on the schedule, they give them away to some concert. They give them away to some circus that comes to town, or they give them away to anybody else who wants to use the arena. Arenas cannot have open dates. And if you want those open dates, you gotta lock those in. So the league went forward with the idea of let's do the schedule, even though we don't even know who's on what team. And I thought that was a blink.
Did you catch that? The WNBA had to release a schedule for teams that don't even have finalized rosters yet, simply to keep their arena dates from getting taken by other events. That's not exaggeration. That's the current reality. The premier women's basketball league in the world is now competing with traveling shows and weekend attractions for building availability. Because negotiations are still dragging on, ownership felt pressure to push out a schedule just to hold those dates and maintain operational control of their venues. It's a move that signals urgency more than stability. The players' union wants to be treated like the NBA. Charter travel, top-tier salaries, the full major league experience. But the financial structure of this league is still trying to find firm ground after decades of losses. That's what happens when expectations accelerate faster than the underlying business can support them. The players are pushing for big league recognition, while the league itself is still working to secure consistent profitability. And that leads to the central issue in all of this, the one factor that's driving nearly every conversation right now. A veteran broadcaster, someone who has watched countless labor battles across sports, cut straight through the noise and pointed to the core reason this league is suddenly under such an intense spotlight.
I don't mean to be flippant, but again, there's a golden goose that's getting more valuable here and and stars. I mean, Juju Watkins is going to be healthy. Like this is rubber meeting the road.
The Golden Goose. Caitlin Clark. Rich Eisen said it perfectly. He understands that the Union is playing an extremely dangerous game with the single greatest asset it has ever had. The Golden Goose is becoming more valuable by the day, and the players are actively trying to choke it off. Do you realize how fragile this momentum really is? Caitlin Clark brought millions of new viewers to this sport. She delivered sellout crowds. She helped secure a massive television deal. But those fans are not loyal to the shield of the WNBA. They are loyal to the player. If the WNBPA forces a lockout, if May arrives and Caitlin Clark is not on television hitting logo threes, those fans will leave. They will go watch the NBA playoffs. They will go outside. They will find something else to do. And once you lose the casual American sports fan, it takes a miracle to bring them back. The entitlement coming from Union leadership is staggering. They genuinely believe the audience will wait. They think that if they delay the season to fight over revenue sharing, fans will sit patiently by the television while boardroom arguments drag on. That is not how the entertainment business works. The window of cultural relevance is incredibly small. Right now, the league is hot. But if you shut down the factory, the product gets cold. And yet you have veterans, players who have been in the league for a decade without ever generating real profit, telling the media they are the ones who built the game. They are blinded by jealousy and greed, and they are using this 80% free agency maneuver to hold Caitlin Clark's sophomore season hostage. Let's look at the timeline, because the clock is ticking faster than anyone wants to admit. Ramona Shelburne said the real pressure point isn't today. It's March, and we are now staring directly at March. In just a matter of weeks, the league must finalize the salary cap, conduct an expansion draft for 2 entire cities, negotiate contracts for 80% of its players, hold the collegiate draft, and open training camps. That is months of front office work compressed into a few chaotic weeks. It is physically impossible to execute smoothly at this stage. Even if a deal were signed tomorrow, the free agency frenzy would be unprecedented. You could see 100 players fighting for roster spots on the exact same day. General managers scrambling to build chemistry with athletes they met barely 24 hours before camp opens. The on-court product in May will suffer because the Union chose to play hardball in February. And who is steering this ship? Ramona points directly to Nneka Ogwumike, Breanna Stewart, and Napheesa Collier. These are wealthy, established superstars. They have overseas income. They have endorsement deals. They have additional ventures, supplementing their earnings. They can afford to miss paychecks. They can afford to sit out a month. But what about the rookie trying to make the team? What about the bubble player whose entire yearly income depends on a minimum contract? The leadership of this union is completely disconnected from the financial reality of its own membership. They are playing a billionaire's game of poker with other people's chips. Adam Silver sees this. We talked about his 11th hour warning. He knows the leadership is driving the car toward a cliff. He knows that if this isn't resolved in March, the Golden Goose is finished. The television partners, Disney, Amazon, and NBC, are not going to pay billions for a league that cannot guarantee its players will show up to work. If this drifts into a lockout, those networks have clauses allowing them to renegotiate or walk away entirely. The players believe they are fighting for a larger slice of the pie. What they don't realize is that they are about to drop the pie on the floor. This entire situation is a masterclass in how to ruin a good thing. The league was handed the lottery ticket of a lifetime in Caitlin Clark. All it had to do was cash it, sign a reasonable collective bargaining agreement, secure the substantial salary increases already on the table, and play basketball. But ego got in the way. Veterans could not stomach the idea of operating inside a financial system energized by a rookie. They wanted to prove they were in charge, so they pushed 80% of the league into free agency. They held arenas hostage. They made the league look unserious on national television. To the fans watching this unfold, you need to prepare for the very real possibility that the start of the 2026 season could be delayed, or worse, canceled. The rhetoric from the players is not softening, it is hardening. And the owners, backed by Adam Silver, are not going to agree to demands that could bankrupt franchises. We are watching an unstoppable force of greed collide with the immovable object of financial reality. If this season goes up in flames, remember who struck the match. It wasn't Caitlin Clark. It wasn't the fans. It was union leadership that believed it was bigger than the game. A group of veterans prioritizing pride over the survival of the sport. The golden goose is sitting there, ready to lay the golden egg. But right now, the union is holding a knife to its throat. The blink has happened. The arenas are booked. The schedule is hollow. The teams are not set. Welcome to the 11th hour of the WNBA, where the only thing guaranteed at this moment is absolute, unmitigated disaster.